The galaxy had many names for Earth. Some called it stubborn, some called it unpredictable, some called it dangerous. But no one had ever been foolish enough to send assassins there until now. On a cold, starless night, a sleek black ship slipped into the solar system. It carried the Night Fangs, the deadliest killers in 7 sectors. They were silent, patient, and merciless, trained from birth to end lives without leaving a trace. Their mission was simple: find and kill 3 humans, whose leadership kept Earth's defense unbreakable. The syndicate that hired them believed this would be quick and easy. The killers believed it too. They didn't understand Earth at all. High above the blue planet, defense satellites scanned the darkness. They detected the incoming ship within minutes, tagged it as a threat, and sent silent alerts to certain individuals on the surface. But no alarm rang, no sirens wailed. The humans did not launch their warships, did not fire their defense lasers. Instead, Earth went quiet. It was the kind of quiet that doesn't mean fear, it means someone is waiting for you. On the streets of a coastal city, Captain Alara Holt stepped out of her small apartment, her boots clicking on the wet pavement. She was not dressed like a soldier, no uniform, no weapon in sight, just a dark coat and gloves. But her eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow. She had been warned an hour ago, though the message was only 5 words: "They are coming for you." She did not panic. She simply adjusted her coat collar and started walking. Far above, the Night Fang ship broke atmosphere without making a sound. Its black hull absorbed the glow of the moon as it drifted toward the city. Inside, 9 assassins stood ready, their blades and rifles strapped tight. They did not speak. They never spoke on a mission. Each one had memorized the faces of their targets. Alara Holt, a man known only as Voss. The plan was to kill them within an hour and be gone before sunrise. The first assassin dropped onto a rooftop, his boots silent against the steel. From there, he moved like a shadow between buildings, leaping gaps and sliding down drain pipes. His mask filtered the air, hiding his face, his eyes glowing faint red. He scanned the streets below. Somewhere out there, the first target was walking. He didn't know she already knew. Across the city, other assassins landed in perfect sync, each heading toward their assigned target. They avoided cameras, stayed. In the blind spots, used routes designed to keep them invisible. It had worked on dozens of worlds before. But Earth was not those worlds. Ilara's steps were steady. She knew she was being watched, but she also knew she was not alone. Somewhere, in the shadows, other humans were watching the Watchers. The Night Fangs didn't see them. They never saw them. At an intersection, Ilara paused. The air felt heavier, like the moment before a storm. A faint reflection in a shop window told her someone was moving on the roof above. She turned her head, slightly as if listening to the wind, then stepped forward without hurry. The assassin followed, moving fast now. From the docks, Admiral Kane stood in an empty warehouse, watching a wall of monitors. Each showed a map of the city. Red dots moved like ants across its each, one a Night Fang assassin, tracked from the moment they entered the atmosphere. Kane's voice was calm as he spoke into his headset. "Targets are in motion. Keep them inside the zone." A voice crackled back. "Understood. Net is closing." Kane allowed himself a thin smile. "Let them think they are hunting. Oh, make the ending sweeter." Back in the shadows, the lead assassin closed in. His prey was only a few meters ahead. He moved to strike, then stopped. Something didn't feel right. The street was too empty. The wind too still. His instinct screamed at him to retreat, but his orders were clear. He raised his weapon. At that moment, he thought he saw movement behind him, but when he spun, there was nothing there. Just shadows, just silence. Still, the feeling of being watched did not go away. Somewhere above him, in the darkness of a rooftop, a human with a rifle adjusted their aim and waited for the perfect moment. The assassin didn't know it yet, but the hunt had already turned. He thought he was the predator. He was wrong. On Earth, predators learned quickly, sometimes too late, that they were never the only ones hunting. The Night Fangs moved through the city like liquid shadows, silent and precise, never wasting a step. Their masks filtered the cool night air, their eyes scanning every alley, every rooftop. The first target, Captain Alara Holt, seemed unaware of their presence. She walked calmly, turning down narrow streets, never looking back. To the killers, it was the perfect hunt until the first mistake happened. It was small, almost invisible. One assassin rounded a corner and found himself staring at a camera lens that should have been facing the other way. It turned, following him for just a second before shutting off. It didn't belong to the city. It belonged to someone else. At the docks, Admiral Kane leaned over the glowing maps on his screen. The red dots representing the assassins were moving exactly as planned. "We've herded them in," he murmured to the tech beside him. "They think they're choosing their path, but they're already inside the cage." The tech didn't look up, fingers tapping quietly on the console. "Do we close it now?" Kane shook his head. "Not yet. Let them believe they're close. Confidence makes them sloppy." Far across the city, two night fangs closed in on a narrow back street. Where Alara had stopped beside a flickering streetlight, they split apart, one approaching from behind, the other climbing to the rooftops. They had done this hundreds of times on other worlds, fast, coordinated, flawless. But as the rooftop assassin reached the edge, he froze. A shape moved in the corner of his vision. He aimed his rifle, scanning the shadows. Nothing, no sound, no heat signature. And yet the feeling of being watched pressed on him like a weight. He shook it off and advanced. Meanwhile, in an abandoned subway tunnel, the third target, the man known only as Voss, sat on a metal crate sharpening a knife. The faint rasp of steel on stone echoed down the tunnel. His eyes were half closed, his posture relaxed, as if he didn't have a care in the world. He had already been told about the assassins, and his response had been short. Let them come. The night fang assigned to kill him was already in the tunnel entrance, moving like smoke between the shadows. He thought Voss hadn't noticed him. He was wrong. Voss had noticed the moment the air shifted.
Back above ground.
The night fangs continued, their silent approach. They didn't see the human spotters on the rooftops, lying still in the dark with their rifles and binoculars. They didn't hear the quiet clicks of encrypted radios or the faint hum of signal jammers being powered up. Every step they took was under watch, every turn they made, guided by invisible hands. But the killers still thought they were the hunters. Alara turned a corner into a narrow, dead-end street. The ground was slick with rain, the walls high and unbroken. She stopped halfway down and stood still, her back to the killers. The lead assassin took it as an invitation. He raised his blade, and advanced steps, quick and soundless. He was 3 meters away when his cum unit crackled with sudden static. He tapped it, trying to clear the noise, but it only grew worse. Then, without warning, the device went completely dead. He froze. In the distance, other assassins began. Experiencing the same thing comes dropping one by one, maps and trackers going dark. Kane's voice came calmly through his own secure line to Alara. "They're blind now. All yours." Alara didn't answer. She simply began to walk toward the assassin. For a split second, the night fang thought she was surrendering. Then her eyes met his calm, cold, and certain, and he realized he was not looking at prey. He was looking at someone who had been leading him here on purpose. From the rooftops above, something shifted, and the faint outline of a sniper rifle came into focus. The shot didn't come yet. The humans were waiting for the perfect moment. The killers didn't know it, but the game they thought they were winning had just turned into their own execution. At exactly 0300 hours, the city seemed to change. The wind stilled, the faint hum of distant traffic faded. The air grew heavy, as if the buildings themselves were holding their breath. The night fangs didn't notice it at first. They were too focused on their hunt. But then, one by one, they began to realize something was wrong. A street that had been open a minute ago was suddenly blocked by a thick metal barricade that hadn't been there before. Side alleys they had used to flank their targets were now sealed by heavy steel doors. The map in their heads no longer matched the reality around them. The hunters had been moved into a maze. On the docks, Admiral Kane watched the red dots on. His screen slow, stop, and bunch together. They know something's wrong, his tech reported. Kane only smiled. Good, that means they'll start making mistakes. He tapped a control, and more barriers locked into place across the city. From above, it looked like an invisible net tightening, street by street. The assassins had entered Earth's territory willingly. Oh, they would never leave it alive. One Nightfang tried to climb a fire escape to escape the narrowing streets. His black gloves gripped the cold metal, his boots silent against the steps. But as he reached the rooftop, he found a human waiting there calm, unmoving, rifle in hand. The assassin froze. The human tilted their head slightly, almost curious, before speaking in a flat voice. You came light years for this.
Da?
The rifle cracked once, and the assassin fell without a sound. Across the city, Alara kept walking, her pace steady. She didn't need to look over her shoulder to know the killers were closing in. She could hear their faint movements, sense their frustration. She turned into a narrow alley that seemed to lead nowhere. A Nightfang followed, blade in hand. But halfway in, a steel wall dropped from above, sealing the exit behind him. When he spun to retreat, he found the entrance blocked too. From the shadows, 3 humans stepped forward, their faces hidden behind masks. The assassin realized too. Late that he had not cornered his prey, he had stepped into a trap built just for him, in the abandoned subway tunnel. Voss rose from his crate, knife in hand. The Nightfang sent for him had finally made his move, charging from the darkness with deadly speed. But Voss didn't dodge, didn't even back away. Caught the assassin's wrist mid-swing, twisted, and slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack the mask. You're good, Voss said quietly, almost respectfully. From Kane's control center, the operation unfolded with mechanical precision. Every killer's position was tracked, every route they tried cut off, every attempt at regrouping blocked. For the Nightfangs, the city had turned into a shifting cage where every turn brought them closer to a waiting rifle, a hidden blade, or a dead end. The killers were used to hunting in chaos, but this wasn't chaos, it was control. It belonged entirely to the humans. Still, a handful of Nightfangs managed to break through the tightening cordon. They were faster, sharper, and more ruthless than the rest. 2 of them finally reached the building where Voss was located, while another pair moved toward Kane's warehouse. But neither group realized they were stepping into the deadliest part of the plan, because the humans weren't. Just trying to survive the night, they were sending a message, and the real surprise was about to begin. The 2 Nightfangs who reached Voss's building entered without hesitation. Their blades drawn, their movements perfectly in sync. They had faced armed soldiers before, but this was different. They were trained to kill quickly, to leave no trace, and they believed this target was just a civilian. The room was dim, lit only by a single hanging bulb swaying slightly in the draft. In the center stood Voss, his hands empty, his expression calm. He didn't move toward the door, didn't back away, simply watched them like a man studying old habits. You've come far, he said quietly, his voice steady. Too far. The first assassin lunged. Voss didn't step back, he stepped forward, catching the killer's wrist in mid-strike and twisting so hard the blade clattered to the floor. Before the second could react, Voss slammed his elbow into the first assassin's chest, sending him sprawling. The second tried to circle behind him, but Voss moved like a man who knew every trick they would try. He spun low, sweeping the killers. Legs out from under him, then pinned him to the floor with a knee to the throat. Your mistake, Voss said, his tone almost casual, was thinking Earth would send soldiers. Outside, human strike teams were moving through the streets in coordinated waves. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. They moved with precision, covering each other, cutting down any assassins still alive with silent efficiency. A sniper on a rooftop took out a Nightfang with one clean shot. In another alley, 2 humans cornered a killer and ended the fight in seconds. Every motion spoke of training, planning, and patience, the kind of patience the Nightfangs never expected from humans. Near the docks, 2 assassins finally reached Admiral Kane's warehouse. They slipped inside through a broken window, landing silently on the concrete floor. The glow of monitors lit the space, casting long shadows. Kane stood at the far end, his back to them, studying the screens. One assassin raised his rifle, aiming for the back of Kane's head. That's when the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the room. The assassins activated their night vision, but the screens were gone, the space empty. A voice spoke from somewhere in the black. "You've been chasing ghosts all night," Kane said. "Didn't you wonder why?" Sharp metallic click echoed, followed by the sound of boots on the floor. The assassins turned toward the noise, but too late something struck them from behind. They hit the ground hard, rifles skittering away. Shapes moved in the dark, maybe for humans, silent and methodical. In seconds, the killers were disarmed, pinned, and left struggling under the weight of cold steel at their throats. The lights came back on, revealing Kane standing over them with a sidearm in hand. His gaze was calm, almost disappointed. "Oh, you should have stayed off our planet." Across the city, the Night Fangs were dying faster now. The humans had stopped. Holding back? For hours, the killers had believed they were closing in on their prey. Now they realized the truth. The prey had been leading them all along. The ones they were sent to kill were not just protected, they were the ones in control. And Night Fangs had been the hunted from the moment they set foot on Earth. By the time the remaining assassins tried to regroup, their numbers had been cut in half. Those who were still breathing were bleeding, limping, or barely able to stand. Their training told them to retreat, to find a way out, but every escape route was gone. The city was no longer a battleground. It was a trap that had been waiting for them long before they arrived. And somewhere in that tightening cage, Voss, Kane, and Alara were already preparing the final move, one that would carry Earth's answer back to the ones who had sent the killers. By the time the sun began to touch the horizon, the city was quiet. The fight was over, though not a single shot had echoed through the night loud enough to wake the sleeping civilians. Bodies of the Night Fangs lay where they had fallen, some on rooftops, some in dark alleys, some hidden deep in the shadows where they had tried to hide. Out of the 9 who had come, only one was still alive, though barely. His armor was cracked, his mask shattered on one side, revealing a bloodied face beneath. 2 human soldiers dragged him through the empty streets, his boots scraping against the wet pavement. They brought him to a dim warehouse, the same one Admiral Kane had been using as his command center. Alara stood waiting, her coat still damp from the rain. Kane was beside her, silent, arms folded. Voss leaned against a crate in the corner, sharpening the same knife he had carried all night. The prisoner was shoved to his knees before a communications terminal. His breathing was ragged, each breath sounding like broken glass. His eyes burned with hatred, but there was something else now, confusion. Lara stepped forward, her gaze locked on the killer. "You traveled across the stars for this," she said in a calm, level voice. "You thought we'd be easy prey." She reached down, tapped a button on the terminal. A holographic feed shimmered to life, revealing the alien syndicate leader, who had sent the Night Fangs. His face, twisted and sharp, broke into a smug grin when he saw the transmission open. "Report," he demanded. "Is it done?" The surviving assassin didn't speak. He only stared at the floor. The syndicate leader's grin faltered slightly. "Where are the others?" he asked, his tone sharper now. Lara didn't give him time to think. She stepped aside so the leader could see the 2 human soldiers standing behind the assassin. Their presence alone told the story the mission had failed. The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" he asked Alara, a voice full of disdain. She smiled faintly. "The one you sent your killers for." She glanced at Kane, who stepped forward. Kane's voice was steady, his words deliberate. "You sent killers across the stars," he said. Earth's reply is simple. Let the pause stretch, the silence pressing like a weight. Not enough. The alien leader's expression twisted into something between anger and disbelief. Before he could respond, Ilara cut the feed with a sharp motion of her hand. The hologram vanished, leaving only the dim light of the warehouse. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Voss flicked his knife shut and walked toward the door. "Send more," he said. Ilara nodded. "Let them. Now they know we're ready." Outside, the city was waking up. To the ordinary people, it would be just another day. They would never know how close death had come in the night, how much blood had been spilled in the shadows to keep them safe. But somewhere far from Earth, in a council room filled with alien voices, a different kind of awakening was happening. The Syndicate had sent their best, their most feared killers, and learned the hard way that Earth was not a place you entered lightly. The galaxy's whispers had changed. Now, when they spoke of Earth, they spoke of a planet that didn't just survive attacks, it ended them. The alien syndicate had always believed in strength through fear. Across dozens of star systems, their assassins had toppled governments, erased leaders, and crushed rebellions before they even began. Their message was always the same: resist us, and you die quietly. But Earth had shattered that message in one night. The loss of the Night Fangs spread through the underworld faster than light. The killer's disappearance was no mystery. Whispers spoke of a planet that had not only survived their attack, but had turned it into a warning. In the Syndicate's High Council chamber, the leader who had ordered the strike sat at the head of a long obsidian table. His lieutenants spoke in low, urgent tones, each trying to explain away the defeat. It was luck, one insisted. The humans must have had help from another faction, another argued. But beneath their excuses was an unspoken truth: they were afraid. If Earth could dismantle the Night Fangs so completely, what else could they do? Far from alien space, Earth was already moving. Admiral Kane stood in a hangar deep beneath the surface, where human warships were being readied. Their sleek hulls gleamed under harsh white lights, crews moving in precise lines as they loaded weapons and supplies. These were not ships built for defense, they were built to go out into the dark. "We don't wait for the next attack," Kane said to the assembled officers. "We take the fight to them." In the corner, Ilara studied a holographic map of alien territory. Red markers pulsed where the Syndicate's influence was strongest. "We won't strike where they expect," she said quietly. "We'll cut the lines they need to survive: trade, communications, supply hubs. Make them feel the silence they tried to give us." Voss, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, gave a thin smile. "Hit them in the shadows." Poetic. The first wave of human ships departed under the cover of deep space interference, slipping into Syndicate territory like ghosts. They didn't announce their presence. They didn't negotiate. One by one, Syndicate outposts went dark. There. Garrisons vanishing without sending a single distress call. On other worlds, Syndicate enforcers woke to find their leaders gone, placed by nothing but a carved emblem on the wall, the outline of Earth's continents. Back in the council chamber, the Syndicate leader watched reports of these disappearances with growing unease. The humans were not conquering planets. They were not building empires. They were dismantling his power piece by piece, with the same patience they had shown in the city streets. And they weren't stopping. Across the galaxy, a new saying began to spread in hushed voices. It was simple, but it carried weight. If they come from Earth, it's already too late. The Syndicate had wanted to teach the humans fear. Instead, they had taught the galaxy that Earth had no interest in fear, it had an interest in endings. In the quiet of his office, Kane watched the latest reports come in. Another Syndicate stronghold gone. Another message sent. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He only turned to Ilara and Voss, who stood beside him. "They sent killers across the stars," he said. "Now the stars will remember. Somewhere, deep in alien space, the ones who had started it all finally understood they had made the worst mistake in the galaxy. They had come for Earth, and Earth's reply would never end. The war was never declared, but everyone in the galaxy knew it had begun. It didn't start with fleets clashing in the void or worlds burning under orbital bombardment. It started with silence. Syndicate strongholds went dark one after another, as if swallowed by the black between stars. No distress calls, no survivors, just empty halls, abandoned ships, and messages etched into steel in a language the aliens now feared: English. The words were always the same: not enough. On Earth, life went on. The cities bustled, children played, and most people never knew their planet was engaged in a shadow war stretching across light years. But above the atmosphere, in war rooms and hangars hidden from the public, a new kind of strategy was taking shape. Humanity wasn't fighting for territory, for wealth, or even for revenge. They were fighting to make sure no one would ever dare try this again. In the deep reaches of alien space, Ilara led a small strike group through a syndicate communications hub orbiting a dying star. The station's defenses had been stripped bare by earlier human raids, and now the crew surrendered without a shot. Fired. Kane's voice crackled over the comms. Disable the relays. I want them deaf before the week is out. Ilara's answer was calm. Already done. Voss was somewhere else entirely, operating alone, moving through Syndicate Black sites and eliminating the assassins who had once trained the Night Fangs. To him, it wasn't strategy, it was personal. The Syndicate's leadership tried to rally, sending their own warships to hunt the humans, but the humans never fought where they were expected. Every trap the Syndicate set closed on empty space. Every time they thought they had found a human fleet, it turned out to be a decoy. While the real strike force hit them somewhere they thought was safe, fear began to erode their unity. Allies turned on each other, blaming rivals for working with the humans. Months passed, and the balance of power shifted. The Syndicate still had more ships, more weapons, more worlds, but they no longer had the one thing they relied on most: control. Their enemies no longer feared them, and in the shadows, Earth's influence grew. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as a presence that could not be ignored. One final council meeting was held in the heart of Syndicate space. Only half the leaders showed. The others were missing, vanished into the same void that had taken the Night Fangs. As the remaining leaders argued, the lights in the chamber flickered. A single hologram appeared in the center of the table. Ilara's face looked out at them, calm, steady, and unmistakably human. "This ends now," she said. "You wanted to send a message across the stars. Consider it returned." The image cut to black, replaced by a single phrase in glowing letters. Not enough. The Syndicate collapsed within weeks. Its power shattered, its assassins scattered, its name reduced to a warning told in whispers. In cantinas, on trading stations, and in the back rooms of smugglers' dens, the story was retold: how Earth had been targeted, how the killers had come, and how the reply had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On a quiet evening back on Earth, Kane, Ilara, and Voss stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. Lights twinkled in the distance, and the hum of peaceful life filled the air. "Do you think they'll try again?" Kane asked. Ilara shook her head. "Not them. Not after this." Voss gave a faint smile. "If they do, we'll just have to remind them." The three stood in silence for a moment, knowing the galaxy was still dangerous, still full of enemies. But after what had happened, one truth was certain: Earth was no one's prey. And somewhere far beyond the rim of human space, in the cold, dark where the stars seemed endless, the memory of that truth lingered. They had sent killers across the stars. Earth's reply was simple, and it had been more than enough: chat.